I'm Krista Wax. You are listening to MSP Sound on KFAI, and I have Toussaint Morrison here with me. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. We just wrapped up a film outdoors in 16-degree weather, and so we're happy to be indoors right now.
That's wow. I cannot compete with that today, but I stayed inside because it is cold.
Good, good. Yeah. You don't want to that is not a competition. That
Yeah.
is just creativity going off of the rails. So yeah.
Well, sometimes it needs to, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Sure does. Yeah.
Well, we can always talk about the weather, but I do have you on for other reasons as well, and that is to talk about your new album. Very Best
Yeah.
of Ricky and Jane. Tell me a little bit about it. What can people expect from it?
So the very best of Ricky and Jane is titled after my mom and dad, Ricky and Jane. Uh, my sister and I were born in New Orleans, and then my parents split up soon after, and we went from the most humid city in the country to one of the coldest cities in the country, which is from New Orleans to Minneapolis. And the album covers a reconciliation point between the two cities for me. Being raised by my grandmother, visiting New Orleans, and the music, the food, the culture of New Orleans is it's so one of one. It's entirely unique unto its own. It feels like you're in a different planet when you're there. And when you get to Minneapolis, there's kind of a familial um there's a familial like just an emotional kind of landmark here for me. And so the album covers that story and journey from one place to another and what that means to me. And then also kind of covering a lot of the filling of the boots that I've done over the past 4 years after my mother and father, they were pretty outstanding activists in the anti-Vietnam War protests. Uh, and well, they protested against the Vietnam War, and they did a lot of activism out in the streets. And so I never thought that I would be in a position that they were in when they were out there all the time. But here, lo and behold, found myself out in the streets a lot in press conferences, speaking and doing a lot of the same things that they were. So a lot of the album speaks to that community activation and involvement that I've been a part of over the past several years.
That's incredible. And yeah, I follow you on Instagram and the breakdown of news stories that you do, not only everything that circulates around Minneapolis or Minnesota, but across the country. That I think that work is so important. And I just thank you so much for what you're doing, just putting a new lens or a good lens, a good look at some of these things and issues that are happening. So I'm grateful for your parents to have, like, brought this activism upon you, that you're continuing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely. I mean, it's in. It sounds weird to say it's in the family, but it's been normalized in my family and my upbringing. So doing that work has definitely been interesting, in that it wasn't something I was, you know, thrust or forced into, but just kind of happened and really filled the space as best I could and to the best of my abilities to serve other community members. So yeah.
That's incredible. So the album, well, I'm sure we'll be going back and forth between both these
Yeah.
topics. They're very intertwined, but I mean, so this album is talking about your journey and the differences in making the way cross country.
Yeah.
Cross country, I don't know, perpendicular, what
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
good
one,
with
yeah.
directions from one spot to another.
Yes. Yes.
But from your previous albums, this is your third solo album?
Yes.
Or
Third solo album. And I mean, I started out with a band called The Blend, and we toured the country several times over in a short bus that we had souped up to be a tour bus. and bunk beds, a couch in there. It was essentially a speeding death trap across the country, and we had taken that thing everywhere. We parked next to the vice president's house when it was Bush's second stint, and we woke up one day to federal law enforcement with guns drawn, saying you can't park this close to the vice president's fence. They thought that we were some type of faction trying to jump the fence. But I mean, we saw a lot during that stint, and so when that broke apart, I linked up with one of my first roommates from college, Dr. Wiley, Jake Wiley, and we made 5 mixtapes. And so the real dream was to just put your music into people's hands for free. So it's kind of like Spotify before Spotify. And well, I guess people pay for Spotify, but we'd made 5 mixtapes, and then it was just time to make non-sampled material. And so we put out Lesser Restoration, which is a callback to, if anybody plays D&D, I don't play it as much as Jake did, but when you heal yourself for a temporary amount of time, it's called Lesser Restoration. And that we put that out in 2018, I think. And then Social Science Club came out in 2021, and that was just, it was already ready to go. And so many things that happened in 2020 and 2021 that the album was ready, might as well put it out. There it went. I mean, music didn't seem as important to me at that time, while being out in the streets, protesting for justice for George Floyd and Dante Wright, and just being out in the street for various reasons regarding justice, primarily for bodies of color that have been victims of state-sanctioned violence. Social Science Club came out, and it was like, cool, it's done. All right, we got that out. Like, great. I'm happy that's, you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I should take the trash out. But imagine Social Science Club being not trash, but being like an errand that was on your list for 2 years. And you're like, oh, wow, I really should really do that. So that went out. And then The Very Best of Ricky and Jane is the most organized, team-oriented, time-filled project of music that I've ever put out. So I've worked with some really amazing people. Everything has been fine-tuned to what I want it to be exactly, and it is as authentic as an album as it can be. And so that it is to the T of like who I am today.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Sorry, Krista. Just gave you the whole Wikipedia page there.
That's kind of what I wanted. So that's good. Great. I mean, great. I should not be doing all the talking. If I am, it's not an interview.
Yeah.
But absolutely. That's incredible. So working on this album, so we put Social Science Club out around 2021, around that time. And then when were you working on this? So was this was I don't want to call pandemic albums. I use that term way too much when talking to artists, but it does feel like there is this point of, were you working on this during, because that was a very different time than what the
yeah very different time. So I think I didn't write anything throughout the pandemic.
You were busy.
I mean, I maybe wrote something in March or April of 2020, and then May hit, and that was May hit, and that essentially when George Floyd was murdered by the MPD, there was really, I guess I wrote something in late summer of 2020, and that was the so the one song that I did write that comes out the 13th, 2 days before the actual album. That song's called Night Game. And so to answer your question, some of the Jubilee and University Ave Nights, Krista, those songs were written in 2014, 2015. Whoa. Those were done. Yeah. Well, the thing is that when you make a song at that time, and then it sits there, and then 3 years pass, and you put out some more modern music. You look back at it, and you're like, oh wow, we can't. No, 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 no. And the drums feel old. The beat seems a little bit aged, and so Jake and I, we had essentially had a falling out. I had worked with him for the better part of like 15, 20 years. And we had a falling out, and I ended up in the extremely small studio room of a producer named Cecil Strebe. And he took all of the production and just kind of lifted it up. And he's a younger cat with an ear for contemporary sounds and whatnot. And so he lifted Jubilee and University Ave Nights out of the proverbial grave, and essentially brought them to a right now standpoint. So some of those songs came from way back, and some of the songs originated as recently as March or May of this year. So Ferrari Hearts and Quarter Mill Pickups, that's a guitar riff that Edward Foley and I worked out a year ago, and I finally wrote for it probably 3 months ago. So yeah, we had to get that out the door. So every album you see and mixtape has, starting with Toussaint Morrison Is Not My Boyfriend. That was a mixtape, the third one that we made out of 5. Great title.
I'm trying not to laugh while you're talking. So
well,
yeah.
Urban, and where that comes from very quickly, Urban Outfitters had a t-shirt that said, Jesus is my homeboy. And it had a picture of like, this cartoon figure, Jesus. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I made an album called, the first mixtape I made was Toussaint Morrison Is Not My Homeboy. And so it was all this, Chris, it was very self-deprecating. I was not too easy on myself back then. I did not have a whole lot of self-love. But and so Toussaint Morrison Is Not My Homeboy. Then one is called Toussaint Morrison Is Not My Boyfriend. And from there, we sampled Chet Atkins. And he was an amazing slide guitarist, folk guitarist, whose song was on an Esurance commercial. And I was like, oh, I want to sample that. I want to rap over that. So since that mixtape, we've done a track where it's just very folksy, percussionless guitar. And Ferrari Hearts and Quarter Mill Pickups is that track for this album. So every album you'll hear like, oh, there's that Chet Atkins track. It's just some guy rapping over, really like acoustic Johnny Cash type stuff. So yeah, that some songs are as far back as 2015, 2014. Some are as not so far back as May of this year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. It's a lot going on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm still laughing about some of these album titles. So thanks.
Yeah, we had to take some of them off of Spotify because they were sampled, but the Bandcamp and the SoundCloud, everything is, legitimately there, and you can go laugh at all the titles there because they're all there for you. They're all there.
I'll smile at it and I'll bob my head. There won't be laughing.
Yes.
Some great album titles.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
Well, this is exciting. So you have the new albums coming out mid-December, December 15th. Is that correct? And that will be available electronically everywhere. You can have any physical copies.
No physical copies. I wish I don't. Right now, I don't have the demand for vinyl. Like if I can sell out of these poetry books, then maybe I'll get vinyl for the album. But I haven't, the audience that listens to me, I don't know if we'll get there. But right now it is literally a digital copy right now. So yeah. But what I do have is the lyric book. So we printed off a bunch of lyric books for the release party this past November 11th, where everybody got an early access to the album. But what I do have to announce is that we are reprising that show for Thursday, December 7th at the 331 Club. So we'll be there doing the same set. It's for free. Because on November 11th, there was a lot of service industry friends that couldn't make it. And they were like, oh man, I really wish I could have made it to your show. Too bad. And I'm like, you know what? I got a monthly gig where I book hip hop acts at 331 Club. And I think that I'm going to tell them all to, well, I'm gonna curate this night. And so we have Damascus opening up at 9. I'll be playing at 10. And then the Twin Cities greatest dad band called Uncle Muskrat plays at 11. So there you go.
Fantastic night of music. Well, that's very exciting. You're going to have another one because I missed the other one too.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Well, you'll see it pop up on the Instagram. So there'll be a little announcement there.
Hey, you know, I'll catch it there. I'll catch it there. I'll catch that announcement.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about your Instagram a little bit more about some of the news stories that you're covering and kind of what inspired you to even start posting this on Instagram. I mean, I think I know the obvious answer of why on Instagram, but how it did, because I know you do a lot more activism than just posting on Instagram. Like I do.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing that, yeah. It's like I think of it as like swimming. And so like I swam in high school, and what a lot of people would see, they would come to the swim meets and be like, oh, wow, that was a really great job that you did. And I'd be like, thank you. And then you go back to practice where you're like essentially in like a dark swimming pool that, you know, after, you know, class gets out, and you're essentially, you know, practicing and refining your craft. With Instagram, what you're seeing is like you're seeing like the highlights or the refined pieces of research and reading. And at press conferences and rallies and protests, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg of all the anxiety and momentous buildup. And so if for anybody, you know, that's been out to those events, protests, press conferences, rallies, marches, you know that there's a certain amount of anxiety to it. There's a lot of emotion there. And if you're not present, for me, if I'm not present, then I simply step out, because I can't. I think the work that I've done working with families affected by police brutality, it's been incumbent upon me to be present. And so what you're seeing on Instagram is kind of the refined and edited pieces of that being present to a story, and then giving it to other people so they can then do with it what they will. And so some people will say, you know, F off, and some people will say, oh, wow, I never knew that. And some people will say, right on. And it's not, for me, it's never been about getting a F off or right on or oh, I think I learned more. It's more so to just to give people information so that they can formulate their own opinion or their better understanding of where they stand in humanity. And it, you know, it's not for anything to be right or wrong to say, hey, look at this thing that happened in Connecticut. Don't you think that's crazy? Like that's not necessarily it. It's taking a story where a billion-dollar company has a train crash go off the rails in a small town, and that's the happening. But the story is this billion-dollar company was warned that that would happen, and they knew what was on that thing. Now, what do you think about that? As opposed to, man, this is really messed up, ain't it? I think we all kind of have an idea that vinyl chloride spilling off of a train is a bad thing, and fish just, you know, turning upside down from a mile out. That's awful. But the question is the context, and why did that happen? The context of what happened when that cop shot a pregnant woman who was, you know, allegedly making off with groceries. You know, do you think that food insecurity is that punishable by death? How do you feel about that? You know, what's the context there? And so it's giving people an insight to a lot of things that nobody would have ever known about, because there were no, not to say there were no cameras 20 years ago, but footage has grown exponentially of the world. You can learn a different language from hundreds of different apps right now. You can learn about a different culture from thousands of different websites right now. And so our access to information has never been further and wider. And it's also never been more I want to say, I don't want to say mind numbing, but analysis paralysis. Like, oh, I don't know where to go. And so my hope is just to give people information to then, go in a direction and expand on it for themselves. Because I am by no means the here all and end all of the stories that I report on my Instagram and just inform people of. And it's the same thing with my music. It's just it's a more emotional and opinionated take on it. So yeah, that's what my Instagram has been. But it started out as me being I guess a leader told me that me delivering thought pieces on what's happening at the epicenter of the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis and what's actually happening and how I feel about it. I am not a monolith for any group of people. I speak for myself, but as a Black man in Minneapolis, I have felt a certain way and had a lot to say. Still have a lot to say about it. And the idea for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook was to provide context and information for people that may have been outside of it and may not have been able to attend all the protests.
Oh, that is all incredible, very important, and thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for
that.
for listening and taking note.
Of course. Whew. For a second, I was wrapped up, and I thought, "Oh, it's like I'm watching one of your videos." Like, but no, wait, we're having a conversation too. Wake up, Krista. No, it's not asleep.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that's very exciting about your new album and everything going on Instagram. People can follow you there. They can find your music everywhere, or almost with streaming platforms everywhere.
Yeah. I'm curious, Krista, do you go to holiday shows at all?
Yes.
Okay, you do go to holiday shows. Okay, so you can help me out with this very quickly. If somebody has a holiday, like Chanhassen Dinner Theaters, like we got Sister Act 2 going on, and they will have that playing for like half a year, and they will just keep selling out shows. That is an extreme example. If an artist is to do a holiday show, do you think it should be one night only? Or should it be like Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Or maybe just Friday, Saturday? What is too much and what is just enough in that regard?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it should be at least a couple shows. I'm thinking about a couple artists in particular. One that does a big, they do 3 shows over Friday and Saturday. And then I'm thinking of another artist who does maybe 4 shows over 2 days. So maybe it's a early evening and then a late evening show. So it gives people multiple opportunities to do holiday shows.
Okay.
And maybe it depends on if it's just one person or if you're bringing in guests. Maybe you want something different at the different shows. And I could go on. Now, this is a topic I could go on about. So
good question. I think we're going to do a holiday show where I sing Harry Connick Jr. and my friend Roz, she sings, Mariah Carey and some of that. And I think it's going to be Friday, Saturday, December 15th and 16th. But we'll send you the digital flyer when that happens.
Please tell me you're not messing with me, because that would be amazing. I love this.
No, it's going to be like Dean Martin, Vegas Lounge Act, but the thing is, it's going to be at the Northeast Social. So it's very small, but we'll see how this works out.
Oh my, well, and for me personally, who loves the holiday shows, I love to dress up for the holidays. So any excuse for that. You got Mariah Carey. You think, oh, I can dress diva. We're doing diva holiday. I'm in.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Why not? Any excuse to dress diva when the snow's coming down. Yeah, that is. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Your reaction has given me much insight. So you'll get the invite. We'll figure this out.
I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, where? Okay, so much to think about.
Hmm.
I'm glad I have some time. Thank you. Like a couple weeks,
Yeah. A little bit of time. 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay, I'm on it. Get a little excited.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Well, Toussaint, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show. Congrats on the new album and just all the work that you're doing. The movie you're working on a movie. Are you able to talk about that at all or what? Or
Yeah. So I got a small grant to make a series of films called Radical. Radical is a larger TV series that uh, there's like we can get into that later, but essentially, I'm making a project of 10 short films that deal with the um, kind of community and humanity post uprising in Minneapolis, and the through line is rage, because the large through line for a lot of Minnesotans has been passivity or suppression of rage. So it's kind of this it's this look into people's lives. What happens when they go over the edge? It's too much. And one small example that's fairly not aggressive at all is what happens to four Minnesotans when they all arrive at a four-way stop at the same time. Who goes next? Do I go in reverse? And somebody's got to get out of their car and direct traffic. And so, they just lose it. So that's one of the short scenes. But we're halfway through today. Holy smokes, we were in 16 degrees, and now we're on to different things now. So yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. When the bottoms of your feet start freezing up, Krista, that's when you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Whew.
Agreed. Well, I hope you stay warm, and so
Yes,
does
you do.
everyone else that you're working with on this film as well. But again, congrats on the new release. Very best of Ricky and Jane coming out December 15th. You are doing another release show. Hooray. December 7th, 331, and potentially this holiday. Is it because I'm wearing red? Because
I don't know. No, I only ask you. Yeah, because you were wearing red, I was like, I should probably ask Kristen and see what she thinks of this, because it's a logistics question, and if you know holiday shows, you know holiday shows. So it sounds like you know holiday shows, and this is the first one I'll ever be doing. So yeah,
very exciting. Hopefully not the last. So
no, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.